It's time for the drive with Q on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Now, here's Q.
Good afternoon, everyone. That had to be AI driven, as if it can only be very monotone on this Wednesday afternoon of this edition of the Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air. 2 hours to play with on this Wednesday as we try to get over to hump the 21st of August. Trust me, I am going to get our liners and our intro in set for the football season. That is my task. That is my job. That is my duty. And I will perform the duty to the best of my ability. Just put me out there, coach. Just give me a glove, give me a mitt, give me a bat. Let me go. Suit them up. Busy show, 727-858-6650. We'll take it up to 5 o'clock straight up. Steve Gardner on baseball around 3:30. We'll run through the gamut, go around the diamond with him. I'll give you some plays, 3-0 on Monday. So thank you very little for you guys as well. Hopefully you put a little coin in the pocket. But as always, text in 727-858-6650. NFL heavy. We are closing out the preseason tomorrow night, Friday, Saturday, boom. And then we blink and the NFL kicks off a new season. And I know when we spoke on Monday, and we had some really good conversation, great dialogue, talking about Tua's comments, you just knew that Brian Flores was going to come out and have his own, I guess you can say, take on the whole situation, right? And I know some people, if you listen to the comments, there was some thought that, well, maybe he's taking the high road. And that's not what he was doing. I mean, Brian Flores just pretty much, just pretty much made it be known he did not like Tua. If you listen to his comments, ultimately, even though he's saying, hey, I wish him well, I'm happy for the success, you can tell, listen, he had the glasses on, he had this, here we go, I don't want to get into it. And listen, it's pretty clear, it's pretty obvious, and it's pretty evident that they did not get along. I think it's pretty, it's just par from the course right now, right? Par from the course. And again, he's taking this criticism and feedback from Tua on the chin, and he's talking about, I'm going to grow and I'm going to learn. And it's really not that. I mean, he's coming off as a guy that, if you really think about it, he's coming off as a guy that he doesn't want to say the wrong thing, right? He doesn't want to say the wrong thing. And you have to remember, he went 19-14 in his last 2 seasons. Miami fired him. They hired McDaniel. They made some moves, okay? They made some moves. And I get it. This team needs to go far into the playoffs. They need to elevate themselves. They need to take it to another level. I understand all that. But really, at this point, it's one of these situations where, like, hey, what can you do at this point if you're Brian Flores? You can't really sit there now and go back and forth with Tua. You just can't. You just can't. You can't go back and forth with Tua. You just have to now focus on the task at hand, being part of the Minnesota Vikings coaching staff. The problem is the fact that he came out and he was just, what he could have said. In a situation like that, sometimes you got to sit there and say, yeah, I think the kid made some good points. Maybe I was a little too harsh. Maybe I was too tough on him. And it's maybe one of the reasons that I lost my head coaching gig. I need to grow as a man. I have to treat players with more respect. I do understand that the relationship between a head coach and a franchise quarterback, it is a special one, right? It is a special one. And maybe it's a situation where, again, he can't really sit there and, fix it, if that makes sense. And he can't really turn around and say to himself, well, yeah, I'm trying to be a better person. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I just don't think that's a situation, to be quite honest with you. I don't. I don't think that's a situation. I think what has happened now is you've got a situation where you have a head coach that at the time thought he was doing right. You have a head coach at the time who thought that he was, how do I say this? He wanted to put his foot down with stuff. He wanted to make a point of reference and saying that, hey, I'm the head coach. This is what I'm going to have to do. So it's just one of those situations where, listen, if you're the head coach and you understand that you've got a franchise quarterback, you need to, again, handle it a different way. So when you have a head coach at the time who's ripping on a quarterback, or the quarterback comes out and he says what he says, and then a couple years later, the quarterback banks some money, has a semblance of a success, and then decides to tap dance on the head coach who got fired, who brought up a lawsuit, who had all these issues going on with the NFL. I really didn't expect Brian Flores to come out and turn the other cheek. I didn't really expect Brian Flores to come out and say, hey, you know what? He was right. My coaching style, it's one of the reasons that maybe I lost my job. We weren't successful. I didn't build this kid up. I didn't placate him. I didn't support him. I didn't pat him on the back. He wasn't going to say that. You already know that. And you know how you know that? Because Flores is the one that decided again, Flores was the one that decided that he was going to sue the NFL. I mean, we forget that, do we not? He was the one that decided, man, listen, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong. There's something that I feel I'm not comfortable with. I'm not happy with. I don't like how things are going down. And I need to voice my opinions on this. I need to let the NFL know that what they're doing is wrong. Their hiring practices. And he made a stink. And at the time, everyone said, is this sour grapes? Is he trying to upset the apple cart? So, discrimination, you go against the NFL, you go against your company, you go against a business, a powerhouse, and you sit there and say, I'm going to sue you for discrimination. Man, you better have all your friggin' ducks in a row. You better have a paper trail. You better have everything, Johnny on the spot. You have to have, evidence, really strong, suggestive evidence that you can show cause. This is why I was fired. I'm discriminating. This is why I haven't been hired. Well, maybe it's the fact that you weren't a really good head coach and you didn't build up this quarterback. And now another head coach comes into play, and all of a sudden the quarterback is starting to excel. I mean, both of those can be true. So when Flores comes back and he responds, and he really didn't respond, that's the thing, right? He's sitting there saying, well, they weren't positive for me. Well, what did you expect, right? The words hit hard, but I have evolved. You really didn't take ownership of it. Like a man that stands up there and takes ownership for a comment like that, you know what he said? He turns around and he says, yeah, I was hard on the kid. And if that's how he felt, I apologize and I'm sorry. But I'm really happy for him. And I'm not going to sit there and say, because I was hard on the kid, he's succeeding. No, I probably broke him down a little too much, and I need to grow as a man. And now I know if I get an opportunity to coach again in the NFL, and I'm already on a coaching staff now at Minnesota, I got to coach these guys up. Why? Because I have to understand how fragile the psyche is and that relationship between a franchise quarterback and a head coach. And now I think what's going to happen, it's crazy, but you will start to see now the Miami Dolphins, they're going to rally around their quarterback. And all he did is make comments about a past head coach who's not even the head coach anymore. But he made comments about the coaching differences between Flores and Mike McDaniel. And like I said, when you have a player come out and said, if you woke up every morning and you told that you suck, how would that make you feel? Well, if that's really the case, then Brian Flores, he's not a man. It's almost like a bullyish mentality. But also, Tua's got to understand, I'm going to have haters out there. I'm going to have doubters out there. I'm going to have guys that are going to look at me on film and say, I'm not an MVP caliber quarterback. They're going to look at me on film and say, I just make the easy passes. We've got weapons all over the place. These guys make me look good. Now he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. And he's going to have even more of a chip on his shoulder because he's more pissed that he poked a bear and the bear didn't poke back in Brian Flores and basically sit there and say, yeah, you know what? The kid's right. Flores wasn't going to do that. That's not his personality. That's not who he is. He's got the ego. He's got the pride. It's all coming into play. And it could be possibly a reason why he doesn't have a head coaching job. I mean, think about that for a moment. And in this situation, hey, man, you're still in the league, right? You're still in the league. You're not a head coach, but you're in the league. You're a defensive coordinator. Here we go. You're with Minnesota. Does he believe that maybe the door will open up for him to be a head coach again in the NFL? Well, we've seen the revolving door of coaches in the NFL, so I'm not going to sit there and dismiss it wholeheartedly. But what I'm going to tell you is that I think coaches, you got to be real careful now because this is what happens, right? You get these quarterbacks, they're banking money. Maybe they had a rough start to their career. Now they're playing much better. They got the security blanket of a nice fat contract. They're put up some numbers. They're winning some games. It doesn't work out with the head coach. He's out on the street, and the quarterbacks now decide it's open season. I mean, look, Tua was just being transparent. He was being open. He was being honest. And I get it. People would turn around and be like, well, why is he pissing on a guy's grave who's no longer the head coach anymore? Well, again, it's what you get out of these players. Le Batard's fantastic and great at what he does. It makes him so successful. Tua is just an outspoken, more open book, I should say, in that regard, than maybe some other quarterbacks, where they're not going to take shots, right, at former head coaches. But let's be fair, folks. We have seen head coaches take shots at quarterbacks before. They might not sit there and on the surface say, yeah, this guy, it's not the throw that we need it. He needs to play better, or we can't have that decision making going forward. Hey, that's a throw you don't make 6 years. There's ways that they go about it without really going about it. So it works both ways. Do I think Tua is thin-skinned, soft quarterback? No, I don't. Do I believe he'll use this and try to rally, right? Because I think no matter what, people will watch the Dolphins this year. And if they get off to a slow start, that the narrative is going to be like, well, does Mike McDaniel need to coach this guy up more? I don't think that's the case. I just think you had a quarterback and a head coach that didn't get along. Hell, we might see it in Philadelphia. If everything goes south for the Philadelphia Eagles and they struggle and they win 9-10 games, and I know that's when I say struggling, a lot of teams would take that, i.e. my Giants, but they get bounced in the first round. Jalen Hurts offensively struggles. With that offense, doesn't put up the gaudy numbers. Sirianni on the hot seat. They have a 3 or 4, game losing streak. The conversation is going to be had. If the head coach leaves, maybe, again, this is all speculation, down the road, Jalen Hurts is asked, what was your relationship with Nick Sirianni? And maybe the can of worms. Pandora's box is open. I mean, did the players not do that with Chip Kelly? Did they not? I went on the air. I remember at the time, vividly said this. I screamed at the mountaintop. Chip Kelly was not going to last 3 seasons in the NFL as a head coach. I never felt he was going to last 3 seasons in the NFL as a head coach. So he was with the Eagles 2013, 14, 15, and then boom with San Francisco. And it never panned out. Everyone fell in love with the offensive style, the aggressive. Here we go, Oregon, quack, 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 boom, boom, boom. Hey, man, this is a guy that had the ego that wanted to sit at the big boy's seat. Think about that. You go back to 2015. What did Jeffrey Lurie do? Made a huge mistake. He said Chip Kelly is going to have control over the 90-man roster. That included what? Authority over the draft and free agency. And then little Howie was elevated to the role of executive vice president of football operations. So he would control the numbers, salary cap, contracts, boom. What did the Eagles do soon after? You remember? They traded LaShawn McCoy, who was an all-pro running back, to Buffalo for Kiko Alonso, who played under Chip Kelly at Oregon. Never panned out. They jettisoned Nick Foles to St. Louis for Sam Bradford. Never panned out. They turned around, they signed DeMarco Murray. He didn't get along with Deshaun Jackson. I mean, it was just, the ego is a powerful thing when you're an NFL head coach. And if you cannot get along with players, that's okay. But if you have zero respect for your own players, if you treat them like garbage, they're not going to play hard for you, man. They're just not. I don't care what any player will tell me. And I've spoken to a lot of players, and I have very good relationships with former and current players in all different sports, especially the NFL. And some of them will tell you, man, I get it. It's a check. I'm playing for me, but I'm not going to run through a wall for this guy if I'm not on the same page with him. They're just not. They're just not. They're thinking about their family, the check, the contract, the bonuses, the incentives, their livelihood. That's all they're concerned about. And obviously the team and winning. But when you got a piss poor head coach who doesn't know how to manage, who doesn't know how to coach up the players, it's a bad fit. We talked about this on Monday's show. It is a bad fit. You cannot have a situation where all of a sudden players are afraid to go to the head coach, or the head coach is walking through the halls of the facility and players turn around and they look down. Or people who work for the organization or part of the coaching staff are afraid to approach said head coach because they're afraid of the backlash. They don't want to walk on eggshells. You can't have that. Chip Kelly was a jerk off. I mean, seriously, he was a jackass. He really was. Nobody liked Chip Kelly. It was a bad hire. It was a bad hire. They didn't think it through. But then when they questioned Doug Peterson, it worked out for him. Well, Miami, it was a bad hire with Flores. And now they got a head coach that understands the players, and that's why they're thriving. Now, this team, they need to make a deep run into the playoffs. This team needs, they have to make a deep run in the playoffs. So there's a little NFL fill for you guys right there. We'll get into the Dallas CeeDee Lamb situation as well. You know, Aaron Rodgers came out and said, man, this is a taxing, right? The most taxing camp of his career. I'm just so over Aaron Rodgers. I'm so over Aaron Rodgers for many reasons. Now, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is going to the Hall of Fame. You can argue Aaron Rodgers might be top 3, 4, 5. Lists are subjective, however you guys define it. But at this point, and I'll say it, I'll go on the record and I'll say it, and you guys can hammer me. Jet fans, I know you want to pile on me and hammer me on this 21st of August, 2024. This is not going to end well for Aaron Rodgers or the New York Jets. It's not. Because you have to be, when you're in the NFL and you're the face of a franchise or you're the franchise quarterback and you're thinking about retiring, or you're contemplating retiring, or maybe you're like, man, my body just can't go through it anymore. I want to be in the booth. I want to talk about the game for a living. I don't want to play anymore. You can't be half in. You can't. You know, Tom Brady didn't kid himself anymore. He was just like, I'm ready. Plus, he had the monster contract for Fox waiting for him. Rodgers, with the hemming and hawing with Green Bay last offseason, and then obviously what transpired when he got hurt, and then throughout the whole season, you're going to come back. It's going to be a great story. Here I'm going to be back in December. No one's ever come back from this type of injury. Sprinkle a little friggin' whale semen on the ankle, on the torn ACL, and here we go, Robitussin it up, and I'll be back out there. It was a tease to the Jet fan, and it kept the he played the media brilliantly, like a fiddle. He kept them engaged because the story wasn't about the Jets. The story was, I can't believe this guy off an Achilles tear, starting to put weight on his back foot, starting to sling it. He's out there throwing it around, throwing ropes. Now he's on the sidelines. He's going to be back out there. They're going to save the Jets season. Here we go. Here's the savior. He teased everyone. He teased the fan. He wasn't coming back, and they were not going to allow him to come back. They weren't. The medical staff wasn't signing off on that. But this is a guy that's acting like he's been with this franchise for 15 years. Guys had a cup of coffee, 4 snaps worth. I'm telling you, Jet fans, it's over before it started. It's over before it started. I mean, listen, you've got a head coach. You've got a head friggin' coach in Robert Saleh who's 18-33 in his first 3 seasons. And now I got to hear this. They're preaching a business-like approach. Yeah, okay. I mean, you got a player that you thought was going to shore up the defense, doesn't want to play for you. I mean, I believe that, and it goes back to the Dolphins, I believe the AFC East, it's the Dolphins' division to lose. It's right there for them. I'm not a believer in Buffalo. You already know how I feel about the Patriots. I think they're going to horrible season. I think they're in store for a really rough season. It's right there for Miami. It's right there for Tua. It's right there for a franchise that has been starving to have their franchise quarterback and play meaningful football deep in the playoffs, right? This team that won 11 games last year, they couldn't beat Buffalo on that Sunday night game. They had to travel to Kansas City, and they got waxed on the road in the cold. It sets up right now for Miami. So any little, Flores saying this or players ripping Tua or talking heads talking about, they're all going to use all that. They're all going to use it, and boom. They're just going to pour it out on a Sunday. Now, again, if they start the season 1-3 and they lose to, say, the Titans or the Patriots or the Colts, then all bets are off. But I think they're in store for a big season. We'll get into a little more NFL, 4 o'clock hour. We'll reset the table, 23 past the 3 o'clock hour, just cranking up on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass. Steve Gardner is going to join us in about 5 minutes, 3:30. We'll get into a little baseball, the stretch run in baseball. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago because we know the baseball season is such a long season. But man, I'm telling you, some teams that I pretty much dug the hole. I put the lime down. I was getting ready to just, sprinkle a little dirt on some of these teams, some of these bodies, and man, little egg on the face. And what I think is really remarkable is when you look at the NL and the NL East, because the Braves have won 3 straight 7-10. They're 6 back. If they don't stumble here and there, they can be 3 or 4 back. Now, I know the Phillies. Look, I couldn't preface this enough by saying that this is a big series. They lost the opener 3-1. They play in the middle of a 3-game set. Ozuna having a monster season for Atlanta Braves as a DH, putting up some big gaudy numbers. This is a big series for the Philadelphia Phillies, for their psyche, and also for Atlanta. If Atlanta takes 2 out of 3 or they sweep Philadelphia, they know in another week or so, they get them for 4. But they got to go on the road in Philly at the ballpark where the ball is probably going to fly in late August, where you might get a couple more humid days here and there. This is a major, big-time series for the psyche of both these squads. I also want to get Steve's thoughts on Judge, Ohtani running away with the AL, NL MVP respectively, and also what teams he believes might be sneaky come playoff time. And the Houston Astros are going to be one of them. People left them for dead. They surpassed Seattle. We'll get into that as well. Keep it locked in. 25 past the 3 o'clock hour. We're just cranking up on a Wednesday edition of The Drive right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. We are powered by ION TV for all your late-breaking news, weather, traffic, source, and resources. Check them out online. Don't forget to download the app. Visit us online, sr1029thegame.com, part of Coastal Sports Network, and get engaged. Get into the conversation, 727-858-6650. Got some good eyeballs already watching us on X as well. And we always like to say, hey, Southwest Florida, tune us in. We'll take you on a little drive right up to 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. Keep it locked in. Steve Gardner, USA Today, coming up on the other side.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game app and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
All right, 3:30 on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. It's Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass. Steve Gardner should be joining us in a moment or two. I'll get to some Facebook comments as well. Dean in Laurel Springs chiming in. Q, excellent thoughts and comments to open up the show on Flores. I read that article that you mentioned on Monday about the lawsuit and discrimination a couple of years ago. I believe it is just his ego, and he realizes that Tua is better off with another head coach. I don't believe Flores is going to actually have another head coaching job opportunity going forward. But to your point, I really didn't believe that he was going to actually come out and say he apologized. All right, so a couple things, and Dean, appreciate you listening. Laurel Springs, South Jersey, old listener when I was on 1360 WNJC many moons ago. So I kind of surmise that you have to remember one thing, right? A lot of times somebody comes out after the fact and maybe says something, and now you believe you have to be the first one to dispute it or refute it or argue the point. But then what happens, it becomes what? It turns into said pissing contest, does it not? It almost turns into this back and forth kind of pissing contest. And after a while, nobody wants to hear that. You got the NFL season right around the corner. You don't need those types of distractions. You just don't. So I'll get to more comments in a moment. But see, we can welcome in our good friend, Steve Gardner from USA Today, great baseball writer, kind enough to join us on a couple moments on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Rich. How are you?
I see you spruced up the background a little bit there, huh?
Got a few things on the shelf back there to show my sports fandom.
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that. I mentioned a couple moments ago, I don't know if we overstate, understate the importance of the Phillies and the Braves. Obviously, Philly losing last night in the opener. They'll have a 3-game set. Then they turn around another week 4 at the ballpark. Ozuna with a couple, again, monster home runs. He's having a monster season as a DH for Atlanta. But, more if you separate standings wise, right? We know Philly is still up by 6, but for the psyche, is this series more important for Atlanta or Philly?
I think when you're chasing, it's more important for you no matter what. You want to gain ground, you want to gain momentum, and you want to knock down, maybe put a little bit of a shadow of doubt in your opponent's back of the opponent's minds. So yeah, I think still Atlanta, obviously, they have to show that they are resilient once again in losing another star player to injury. This
Yeah.
time it's Austin Riley, and if you can still stay strong in after another devastating type injury, I think that's a sign to your fans. That's a sign to your ball club, and I think they can draw from it if they can, in fact, go out there and win on the field.
And by the way, it's not like Wheeler pitched poorly last night
Yeah.
for Philadelphia. I mean, I think he gave up 2 runs, obviously struck out 8. The big mistake was the home run, but worked 6 or so. I feel as though when the Phillies lose and they get a very good pitching performance, it's because their offense does absolutely nothing. It resonates with me as being the Yankees fan because it almost is feast or famine at time. I mean, can you make heads or tails of this lineup right now and this offense? What is really the underlying issue here?
I don't know. It can be any number of things. It could be just random variance, which we see rear its ugly head at times during the season for no real reason. But yeah, I mean, everybody is pretty much healthy for the most part, and you would expect that having everybody in the lineup that you want, you'd get optimal performance, and that's not happening every night. And I don't know that there's a solution to that other than just kind of keep your head down and hit your way out of it.
The definition of an enigma will be on the hill tonight in Aaron Nola. I mean, I feel as though you and I have talked about Aaron Nola for the past decade. Like, there will be times where he will go out there and he'll give you 7+, 4-hit ball, 7 strikeouts, and boom, you get the big win. He's dropped, I think, his last 2 out of 3. He hasn't won since they beat the Dodgers back on July 11th. So
over a month. Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, if you need to start, I guess my point is, if you need the guy right now to kind of settle the waters, calm the waters, you would think, well, you thought maybe it was Wheeler last night, but you would believe it would be Aaron Nola tonight.
They need it to be Aaron Nola. I mean, I think last start against Washington, probably one of his highest, if not his highest pitch counts of the season. And probably his one of his best start, if not the best start of the season. The strikeout numbers are down though. I wonder, what's the difference there for him? Because it seems like after the All-Star break, the strikeouts have not been there, and trying to look through some of the underlying numbers or anything like that, I don't really see anything jumping out at me. Balls in play, swing percentage, all those look fairly normal. So again, it just comes down to what happens during that particular game, the adjustments you make in the game, and sometimes Nola, as we've seen, it's been even whole seasons that one has been up, one has been down. The other, the next one is up, the next one is down. In addition to the inconsistency within the season, you just have to hope that he finds it at the right time, and those up starts come, in October maybe.
I think about this. He was at one point 8-2. Now he's 11-8. So you're right. I mean, sometimes you see these guys laboring through, trying to get over 100 pitches. They're working through a couple of jams, a little bit of adversity here and there. But you have to rely. If you say to yourself, look, here's a 1-2 or a 1-2-3 kind of punch. These are the guys that they have to kind of stop the bleeding, right? These are the guys that you rely on to, again, calm the waters. Top 9 right now, Baltimore and the Mets 3-3. That was a hell of a game last night, huh? I mean, you were probably like, you got to be kidding me.
For sure. Just watching the Orioles, especially today too. Some of the Orioles relief pitching, the injuries that they've had to their starters. It's been rough, but somehow you got to find a way. That's the thing.
I mean, right? Who was it? Alvarez the other night, right? Busted out of that slump with the solo shot in the ninth.
Walk off. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If I and let me just for the
Tough
listening
for
audience
Anthony
right there.
Dominguez,
Yeah,
too.
Boston's up 2-1 over Houston, top six, and right now scoreless Pittsburgh and Texas early on bottom four. Which kind of leads me to this: if I were to ask you right now, in the, let's say with the AL, what team scares you the most come postseason time?
You know, it's Houston. It's always Houston. It's been that way for the last however many years, 7 years. They're looking to get back to the ALCS. They got Justin Verlander back today, pitching okay. Kyle Tucker still on the shelf. Who knows? If he's close to being ready. But they've been able to weather the storm. They've been able to overtake the Mariners and look like the class of the NL West that they've been the last most of the last decade. I think Houston is very scary, and because they're peaking at the right time. It seems like the other teams in the American League, the Orioles are having their struggles and their injuries. The Yankees are up and down. The Guardians seem to have slumped now and can't figure out a way to generate some offense. It's a game of momentum, and if you'd asked me that a couple of weeks ago, I would have said the Guardians hands down. Maybe a few weeks before that, it might have been the Orioles, might have been the Yankees. But right now, it looks like the Houston Astros because things seem to be coming together for them and reinforcements are coming back for them at just the right time.
It is amazing how you have a franchise that was so bad for so long and then became a dynasty and a dominant franchise, right? And now they've had this ridiculous run going to the ALCS, getting to the playoffs, winning World Series, getting into postseason. And when Seattle had that 1, 2, 3 game cushion, you just felt you leave a little bit of the back door open, right? And the thieves are going to come in at the night. And that's exactly what they've done. And I think it's more of a gut punch to Seattle. Now, Seattle's still a young team. They got good pitching. They've got some offense. We know that. But Houston's just, they're cut from a different cloth.
Yeah, it just seems that that's the way that they know. They only know one way, and it's to continue to grind and win. They're getting a little bit older, but some of the guys that they've called up for emergency purposes, have looked pretty good. Made a couple of trades too at the trade deadline, as did just about everybody. I don't know that there are any major blockbusters that are going to make or break their season, but they've got a pretty good farm system there in Houston, and they can pull on some of those guys to fill the gaps until the Kyle Tuckers and Justin Verlanders come back and can be at full strength.
Mike on Facebook chiming in, listening from Ohio. Q, always enjoy your baseball spots with Steve. I'm asking what he thinks of the Guardians. Do they have staying power? I know right now they got a 3.5 game lead over the Twins, but do you trust them come playoff time? I guess what he's asking, do you think they have the makeup to make a deep run come playoff time?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the offense. So many times we see in the postseason the home run ball being the difference.
Well, two players, right? Naylor and Ramirez.
Yeah, exactly. And those guys, if they're not hitting the long ball, then this offense relies on stringing 3 and 4 hits together to rally and score. So I think the Lane Thomas addition was a good one for them, though he has not performed very well at all since coming over. But still, it's a team that is solid. I don't know about the starting pitching, if that will hold up. Certainly the bullpen has been the rock for them. And Emmanuel Clase has been the best closer in Major League Baseball, maybe of the past 5 or 6 years. He's just been outstanding, lights out every time he gets the ball. And even, 4 games in a row was called on, delivered save opportunities in every single game. So you add, have him at the back of the bullpen and just top to bottom, solid relief pitching. I think that's huge because, Tanner Bybee, I guess, would be their game 1 starter going into a playoff series. And then who beyond that? That's the real question. So I think they have the ability certainly to win the American League Central. I don't know how much deeper they can go into the postseason without just getting some overachievement from those bit players and their stars carrying them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other, I don't want to say viable option, but if you look at their staff, you're right. I mean, is Ben Lively, is he the number one really, or number two?
Yeah, Gavin Williams, Ben Lively. I guess one of those two is your game two starter. I
That's
think Bybee would certainly be, but they were counting on Alex Cobb to come
right.
back at the end of the year, and then a fractured fingernail issue there. He's going to be out for a while, and can't really count on him there. So yeah, it's going to be one of those where starters just get them to the fifth inning, maybe.
Yeah.
We see this in playoff series a lot, where you get extra days of rest because of the travel days, and it gives the bullpen a chance to get a little bit recharged. When they got to the World Series the last time, the bullpen was a huge component of that. Andrew Miller and company, and so I think that's what they will have to rely on to make headway in October.
340. Call it 342 on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass producing the show, coming at you live inside the friendly confines. Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, Coastal Sports Network, as well on X and my YouTube channel. Steve Gardner, kind enough to join us. Give him a follow on X at Steve A. Gardner. Does a great job. Baseball writer, reporter, senior fantasy editor, USA Today Sports, and of course, BBWAA. All right, I gotta ask you my weekly or monthly Yankees thought right now, and
Okay.
yeah, I just, they have to win the division. I know I feel as though I keep belaboring the point, and Yankee fans are like, stop your panicking. No, it's not panic. It's just being realistic. Like I feel as though short series, you get that hot team, you don't want to face them, you have to win a division, and I just do not know what to make of this team. I mean, what bothers me the most is they're so inconsistent, right? Like, for instance, we knew the White Sox were going to win a game here and there, right? But then all of a sudden they put up 10 against the Yankees. The Yankees come back, they win the series, they take 2 out of 3. Okay, fine. They blank the Tigers, then they bounce back, and what happens? They've lost 3 straight. And if you think about it, once again, aside from last night where they scored 5, but the pitching didn't hold their own, they gave up 9. Their offense, when they lose, their offense, again, I feel is just so feast or famine, and everything's pretty much predicated on Judge. I mean, you look at that lineup right now. Soto's having a monster season, right? Judge is having a monster season. Stanton quietly, even though he's had the injuries and all this other stuff, and he's played in 80-something odd games, we understand that. He's put some good numbers when he's out there. So when they're engaged and they're healthy, it is a tough lineup to pitch around and to pitch through and to face. But I just feel as though, once again, I'm in line for a disappointment because I don't trust their pitching and I don't trust their lineup to be consistent enough come October.
Yeah, and I think, the Jazz Chisholm injury is something that really deflated them, because they got a dynamic guy who added so much to that offense in so many different ways, whether it's speed, power hitting, was like on a ridiculous, home run binge when he came over.
Yeah.
And then to just have that, the air come completely out of the balloon with his injury, and have to go, to Oswaldo Cabrera to fill in and all of that. It makes it that much more difficult. And again, you've got to stay focused, but it's Judge, it's Soto, and who knows who else. Volpe had a good start to the season,
Right.
had
Cool
a huge slump in the middle, trying to get back there now. Gleyber Torres, as always, seems like up and down. So it's one of those where, you need Clay Holmes too. Talk about up and down. Great first part of the season. Terrible recent month or two, even 6 weeks, something like that. It's been everybody, and except for Judge and Soto being the constants. So, this is a Yankee team you can't really get comfortable with if you're a Yankee fan, because just when you think that they're doing something right and getting on a roll and putting everything together, they run into some, a hurdle that they stumble over and fall flat. I don't know. The only thing I guess you could take comfort in as a Yankee fan is that it seems like everybody else in the American League is
That's fair
having their
point.
struggles,
Yeah.
and so it's one of those where it's like the great mascot race that you see the little commercials for. It's 1, 2, 3, and they're just jockeying because somebody's in front, and then somebody else comes up. You just want to be. You just want to be in the game at the end when we get to the end of the regular season, and then take your chances and try and get hot in October.
All right, before I let you out of here, Tommy
I wish
John.
I had answers for you, Rich.
No, hey, listen, that's okay. You got to put me on the sofa, right? Carlton, Randy Jones, Tommy John, Guidry, Catfish Hunter, Tiant, Marichal, Vida Blue, Sutton, Nolan Ryan, Perry. I'll keep going. Seaver. I'll go on and on. Jim Palmer. They would just be beside themselves with this utterly ridiculous proposal to have a 6-inning minimum for MLB starting pitchers. And I, as the old man on the porch and the purist, I do not like this. Get rid of it, burn it, shelf it, bury it. It's just, I mean, your initial thoughts on this proposal?
I don't think it's going anywhere. There's virtually no chance that it gets off the ground, just because it doesn't bring back it doesn't bring back the bygone era.
Right.
Because, if you mandate a pitcher has to stay in for 6 innings or 100 pitches, once they hit that, they're going to be as good as gone. You're not going to get the pitchers' duels where both starters go into the 8th inning. That's just not coming back, because general managers know that when you've got a tired starter, you can bring in a solid, fresh reliever who can throw 95 plus miles per hour and be much more effective. And the bottom line is, Rich, you play to win the game.
Right.
And that's the way that you win the game, is not letting your starters tire and face the other team's hitters a third time, where there's a huge advantage that has existed throughout history. The real difference between the Bob Gibson era and the Jim Palmer era and all of that and today is that those starters were still, even though they were fatiguing, were seeing guys for the third time, they were still better than anybody they could pull from the bullpen, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions like a Goose Gossage or a Raleigh Fingers.
Right.
And that's not coming back. So to think that we can bring it back by just putting in a rule change that they have to stay in, that's going to make for worse baseball. It's going to make for more injuries, and nobody's going to be happy with it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, think about this. I've heard some managers come out and basically saying now you got to push command over stuff, right? Some pullback on velocity. And to your point, back in the day, these guys were throwing 100 plus, 150 pitches. I mean, I looked up Nolan. I'm a stat geek with this stuff, and I just go back and some of the games, his game logs, where he's still firing 98 miles per hour when he's 126th pitch, 127th pitch. I mean, it was a freak of nature. And now it's like, all right, these guys trail off by the 4th or 5th inning and they lose a little bit. What happens? They're tired. They have arm fatigue. We got to pull them. It's just, I don't know. And here's another thing, right? Am I potentially paying a pitcher now X amount of dollars just to go 4, 5, 6 innings to shorten up the game? Or am I really going to pay him like a bona fide ace who, if I need you to go 9 and God forbid get a complete game, right? It's just that's the other factor in it.
I think the guys that can go deep into games will continue to get paid like aces, and the guys that can't, if you're only giving 5 innings or 5 2/3 maximum, you're not going to be making that much more than a reliever, or you're going to get reliever, guys coming out of the bullpen to start,
right?
And more openers, more tandem starts, things like that. I think that's what baseball is trending toward. You get your number 1, number 2 starters, and then maybe everybody else in the bullpen and in the rotation just has that little tandem kind of thing going, where if you can go 4 innings, then we can get somebody else to go 3 or 4, and then we turn it over to the closers. I think that's where it may be trending, unless baseball, unless there's a change in mindset of how to win a game. That right now seems to be the best way to win.
Always trying to, reinvent the wheel here, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. But it is baseball, and like I've said for years, it's meant to be played at a certain pace, right? That's the beauty of it, 27 outs. So Steve Gardner, great job as always covering the sport, USA Today. Hopefully we can get you on for a couple moments either next week or the following week. We got the stretch run coming down. We got the playoffs, postseason. We got to start looking at some of these series once everything aligns from a betting standpoint. But I always appreciate you jumping on board for a couple moments, my friend.
You bet, Rich. Always a fun time talking baseball with you.
Absolutely. There you have it, folks. Steve Gardner does a great job for USA Today, covers baseball, and he knows his stuff, man. He's, I have so many guys that will ask, when is he coming back on? It's got to be a weekly thing. Hey, man, Steve's a busy guy, man. He's a busy guy, but he always gives some great insight, and we always appreciate him jumping on board. Give him a follow on X, Steve A. Gardner. All right, quickie timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 1, and then we'll take up to 5 o'clock straight up. Got a lot of comments coming in on X and Facebook on Miami, on what's going on with CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. I haven't even got into Russell Wilson. They're going to let him marinate a little bit on Saturday for Pittsburgh. And we'll definitely get into some of your comments on the baseball talk as well. Keep it locked in as we are approaching 4 o'clock straight up on the East Coast, a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air, 727-858-6650. That'll get you involved in two-way sports talk, bring something to the table. And we are powered by our very good friends over at ION TV and coming at you live under the Coastal Sports Network umbrella. We'll take you up to 5 on a Wednesday. Keep it locked in.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class, let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
See, this I didn't even realize when I was talking to Steve. The Metties, the Metropolitans, the Amazings walk it off. Jesse Winker walks it off. First home run is a Met, and they beat Baltimore 4-3. Do not bury the Mets just yet. Wow, that's a big, big win for New York. Right now, Boston up on Houston 2-1, top of the 7th. And Pittsburgh and the Rangers still scoreless. And the White Sox drawing first blood, end of 1 out in San Francisco. They lead the Giants 1-0. I mentioned the Phillies tonight try to stop the bleeding a little bit. Nola will be on the hill against Freed. So that'll be a game that I will be entrenched in. Dodgers and Mariners as well. I got a couple comments from some Dodgers fans, and I apologize. I didn't get to reading them off for Steve, but Melly V chimes in, who's been listening to me for years on the West Coast, a big time Dodgers fan. And he says, Q, always loving the show and the baseball talk. I mean, look what the Dodgers are doing right now. They're trying to run away with the NL West. I understand they only lead Seattle by 3. They won 7 out of 8. I believe they have the best offensive lineup in baseball. Will they get through the Phillies? Well, I think the Dodgers are without a doubt the most complete team in the NL. I do. I think from top to bottom, you look at the Dodgers right now. Ohtani's having a monster season. He slugged 39 home runs. Hernandez, 26 home runs. Friedman, 17 home runs. You look at the catcher, Smith. You look at Pages in the outfield. They've got pop and power all over the place. I think, Max Muncy, who's only played in a handful of games, has 11 home runs, right? They're batting like 265 as a team. They slug close to 180 home runs on the season, and they've got pitching. And that's really what you're banking on. Gavin Stone hasn't had the type of season you would want I'm sorry, not Gavin Stone. Glasnow hasn't really had the type of season that you want if you're a Dodgers fan. But you look at the body of work with the Dodgers, and they've got reliable options. That's the thing. Anytime you can throw out, said pitcher, guys that you're banking on, guys that you have confidence on, guys that have been there before, right? I mean, listen, would they love, right? You have a veteran guy in Kershaw. You would love to have a guy like Kershaw give you something at this point of his career, right? And all of a sudden, he's been cooking a little bit. Won his last 2 starts, but you're holding him for the postseason. And I think the matchup wise, I think the starting rotation, I think the Dodgers pitching can at least slow down the Phillies offense. And I'm not so confident that the Phillies, I'm not so confident that the Phillies pitching can slow down Dodgers hitting, if that makes sense. If that makes sense to you guys. I think the Dodgers are a very good team. I believe the Dodgers will make it back to the NLCS. I think they have a very good opportunity to win the World Series. That is a stacked division. So, Mel, to kind of answer your question, yeah, I'm not going to count the Dodgers out. Now, you still got to get through San Diego, and San Diego all of a sudden are coming in gangbusters. And let us not forget about Arizona. The Padres finally seemed to like, oh, here we go. You want to talk about a hell of a lineup. Machado, Profer, Kim, Merrill. That's a hell of a lineup. They're stacked. Pitching beats hitting any day of the week. You got to get a team that's coming in there with a groove, guys that are comfortable, and guys that are just wheeling and dealing, man. Let me get to a couple more. I know we're fast approaching 4. I got a lot of Facebook comments on some baseball, and I want to get it into the NFL in hour number 2. Let me see if I can squeeze these 2 in. Kevin chimes in. Q, I know that you were talking to your baseball writer / guest regarding the 6 inning rule. I agree with him. I think it's a farce. I don't think it's something that's ever going to come to fruition. But to your point, you mentioned a who's who's list of pitchers in the 1970s. These guys were built to go 7, 8, and 9. Yes. Yep. 100%. Do fans care? Look, star pitching in baseball. Do you watch if a guy's on the hill? I mean, think about that for a moment. If you're a baseball fan, 727-858-6650, and I throw out said pitcher, back in the day, you wanted to see a Fergie Jenkins. You wanted to see a Marichal, a Tiant. You wanted to see a Carlton. You wanted to see a Nola. A Nolan Ryan, pardon me. You wanted to see these guys. And then, over the last maybe 15, 20 years, you want to see a Roger Clemens or a Randy Johnson or a Maddox or a Tom Glavine, right? You wanted to see a Pedro Martinez. You wanted to see these guys. out there, throwing some gas, throwing some heat. We're not there anymore, man. You're not going to the game or turning on the TV because Aaron Nola's pitching. It's not the NFL. NFL's got the star power, but it's a good point that you bring up. All right, 4 o'clock straight up. Got to remind you, you are listening to a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here, and we are on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, in association and powered by Coastal Sports Network. And of course, we have partnered up with ION TV. If you guys are driving home, if you download the app, if you need some weather, traffic, any type of vehicle, motor assist accidents, motorcycle accidents, anything, check them out online. Listen for updates as well. ION TB on your drive home on this Wednesday. 60 in the book, 60 to play with. Some more baseball talk, a lot of Facebook comments, some tweets as well. We'll get into the NFL. We'll kind of regroup. We'll recircle. I want to get to some of these thoughts and opinions from you guys out there on Flores, Tua, that relationship quarterback, head coach. We still got Russell Wilson. Denver named a starter. We'll get into CD Lamb for you Dallas Cowboys fans, so we'll run through the gamut. Also, Eagles fans almost held their breath a little bit with Saquon going out. Never want to see a guy get injured, but kind of held their breath the other day when Saquon Barkley was getting his back checked out. So we'll take you home on this Wednesday. 60 in the book, 60 to play with. Keep us locked in on a Wednesday edition of The Drive right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And, with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have anybody to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game app and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
Yeah, we do. It ain't happening over here. It ain't happening over there. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, this guy's good. We're gonna have to put that in the opening. That's one of my. That's one of my favorite. I might have to binge watch that. Well, let me give you. By the way, let me give. We'll get to all the comments, and you guys chime in at 727-858-6650. Let me give you the update on Prison Break. So I'm season 3, and it's now getting to the part where, or the point, I should say, where I'm in it. I can't get out of it. It's now cheesy. And the acting, I feel, has just gone south. But I'm going to weather the storm. I'm going to fight through it. And I'm hoping that they get to break out of 13 more prisons. I mean, they just broke out of a Panamanian prison. I mean, if you can do that, you can do anything. They go from the prison Prism, the prison in Chicago to the prison, say that 10 times, from Panama. So yeah, that's where I'm at. But yeah, might have to binge Entourage again. That's a great show. That was a great series. I mean, the movie, but that's when you got HBO and there was no watching everything on demand or fast forwarding. You'd have to sit and you'd have to wait for next week's highlights. And then when you were ready to watch on HBO, you would hear it like previously on Entourage. Or you remember for the movies for HBO? That was your Saturday night, your Friday night, your Sunday night. Like, the shooting star going through the city. And you're like, yeah, here we go. Get ready. Let's do it. All right. Spaceballs. 8 o'clock at HBO world premiere, Dark Helmet, which was on the other night. Is there a greater movie than Spaceballs? I would challenge you. Every scene in that movie is hilarious. Huh. She's Dr. Schlotnick's assistant. I bet she gives great helmet. 727-8586. Oh, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. That was a great movie. All right, let me rip off some of these comments. We got some fish fans chiming in. What do we got here? South Beach Haven chiming in. Connecting with me. Q, enjoying the show. First time listener. Good to hear you down in Florida. It doesn't seem like you're a Dolphins fan, by the way, that you're ripping Flores in the franchise. Well, hold on a second. I'm not a Dolphins fan, but the last time I checked, Flores isn't the head coach. I'm not ripping see, this is what happens. First time listeners, and you guys want to get it in pieces, in tidbits. But he goes on to say, do you really think the Dolphins are poised to break out this season in a very competitive AFC East? I still think Buffalo's the team to beat. I believe that the Miami Dolphins have the makeup and the firepower to win the division, but ultimately they need to make a deep run in the playoffs. Now, Tyreek Hill is skipping team drills. We know that, a little banged up. Again, you're being held out. I understand that. Joint practice with Tampa Bay. But all the preseason, pardon me, it's just about getting healthy. That's really it. It's all about getting out of there, again, getting some of your reps. I'm not even going to entertain these Giant fans asking me about Sauce Gardner and the comments with the Jets and Daniel Jones. I'm so friggin' over that. I don't care about Dan Orlovsky panicking because Daniel Jones threw 2 friggin' interceptions in a friggin' preseason game. I don't care. You guys already know where I stand with Daniel Jones. So Giant fans, leave me alone on a Wednesday. I do not want to be bothered. I do not want to put you on the sofa. I do not want to be your therapist. I do not want to be your shrink. I already told you guys this. Suck it up. Put your friggin' big boy pants on. The Giants are not going to have a good season. They're just not. And I'll tell you right now, if they lose to Minnesota, open up the season, they're going to lose on the road to Washington. They're going to lose on the road to Cleveland, and they're going to lose to the Cowboys and Seattle. And all of a sudden, boom, you're talking 0-5 to start the friggin' season with Cincinnati and the Eagles right around the corner. That's all I'm saying. That is all I'm saying. So put the big boy pants on. Russell Wilson. I mentioned this, and then I'll get to what I think is a pretty neat thing going on with Denver. But Russell Wilson says he's going to play in Saturday's preseason finale for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And let's be honest. This is a situation now. So Wilson played, and I'll double check. I think it was 4 series he played against Buffalo, second preseason game. They didn't put any points. And they were constantly behind the chains. I think this is Russell Wilson's way of saying, I need to get series in. I need to get reps in. I have to play because I know that this kid, by default, Justin Fields, is breathing down my back, is breathing down my neck. That's what I honestly believe. Mike Tomlin might turn around and say, yes, Russell Wilson is the starter. Russell Wilson will start the season as QB number 1. But if you make that claim, if you make that comment, what you're really also saying is, but there's a chance that Justin Fields could see some action, right? 727-858-6665. Oh, Vince chimes in, college football around the corner. Can we get your conference winner or some dark horse picks for the playoffs? Oh, Vince. I mean, come on, brother. It's August 21st. Can I get to week 1 of the NFL for predictions? I'm gonna lay it out. Costco's gonna join us. He's our resident college football expert. Now, if you want me to do a little more handicapping, you have to subscribe to the podcast Back Your Play. I mean, I'm just, which is powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. But I will definitely get into some college football probably in about another week or so. We'll get Costco on. I got some good writers coming on as well from a fan-sided that cover college football. So we'll definitely give your fill in college football. But I wanted to also bring up Bo Nix, which I think is pretty neat. Bo Nix will be the first Broncos rookie quarterback to start an opener since John Elway. And I don't know if you heard, Cowherd came out the other day. He believes that Bo Nix is the best quarterback among this rookie class. Bo Nix sounds like a quarterback, does he not? Like if somebody walks into the room and they're introducing you to your friends and they're like, hey, this is my buddy Bo Nix. Doesn't that sound like a starting quarterback in the NFL? Hey, what do you do for a living? Starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix. He's a big kid, man. And I know when I say big kid, he's built. He's 6'2", 215, 220, strong arm from Oregon. We already talked about them earlier in the show. He's going to put up some numbers, hopefully, for Denver. I don't think Denver's going to be a very good team, but I like the fact that this kid is going to be out there. I do. I like the fact that this kid's going to have an opportunity to shine, to start. Look, we know only one Elway, but the Denver Broncos just, man, they need a franchise quarterback. They do. They need a franchise quarterback. And then you got the situation with the Dallas Cowboys. O chimes in. Q, I know you mentioned my Cowboys earlier. I do believe they're going to get a deal done for CeeDee Lamb. I don't know why you're always still pissing on Dak Prescott, top 10 quarterback. McCarthy is not the savior. We all know that. They need to make a deep run in order for him to save his job. Yeah, well, that goes without saying, my friend. And Dak Prescott's just not that guy anymore. I don't believe for 1 minute that the Cowboys are any closer to a new deal with CeeDee Lamb. I don't. You have to read the room. And Jerry Jones is doing right now. He's playing this very dicey game. Right? He's playing this dicey game. Go back 4, 5, 6 months ago. Jerry Jones is pretty much taking the same approach to everything this offseason. He's just like, If you're a Cowboys fan, which a lot of you guys that tune in are, you've got to be beside yourself. Because the Cowboys have really, they haven't done anything this offseason. Can you objectively say as a Cowboys fan, they made themselves better? They're on par with the Philadelphia Eagles. They made moves, or the culture has changed like the Washington Commanders. I can't. And I think with Jerry Jones, his approach is, in the NFL, when you see other teams that have had down years and then they burst onto the scene, or they have young quarterbacks start to make plays, i.e. CJ Stroud in Houston, i.e. Jordan Love in Green Bay, Jalen Hurts to some extent with Philly, you start to see that these teams are making a little bit of noise. They're winning football games. They're winning playoff games. They've got the head coach in place. They've got the franchise quarterback in place. Everyone's happy, right? They built the roster out the way they want the roster constructed. Then you've got a meddling owner / GM in Jerry Jones, who takes that laissez-faire Southern twang approach. And that's not going to cut it in the NFL. It's not. I mean, listen, whether Jerry Jones likes it or not, this is like as the world turns, man, sand in an hourglass, days of our lives. Time's running out. You got to get a deal done. You want him to be in full speed. He's your best offensive weapon. Teams break training camp Thursday. So you got 17 days before your first game. And I think everyone thinks that a deal is going to get done because history shows that what Jones does, he waits until the very last minute. That is a dangerous friggin' game. It is. It really is. I don't like that game. I mean, tell me CeeDee Lamb is not important to that offense. I'll tell you, what the hell are you watching? CeeDee Lamb is their offense. This guy's averaging 120 catches, 1,500 yards, 10 plus touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. And if you go back, he had the greatest statistical season as a Cowboys receiver ever last year. 135 catches, 1,749 yards, 12 touchdowns. So again, think about this. Who's the other weapons on this team besides CeeDee Lamb? Name me a weapon. It's not Troy Pollard. You know why? Because he's with the Titans. It's not the quarterback. Because you know what happens with the quarterback at times. He gets banged up or he has a little bit of these inconsistent lulls. You're going to say it's the running back? You're going to say it's what? Over the hill? Elliott? Come on. It's ridiculous. This is nonsense. Look at the gap. Look at the gap between him and, say, Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks had 54 friggin' catches for 657 yards as his number 2. I'm talking about the tight end, right? Ferguson's a nice tight end. He had 71 catches. That's a ridiculous gap. It's like when you had Moss on the Pats and he was just having dominating statistical seasons. No one else on that offense touched what he was able to do, and he had Brady throwing him the friggin' football. If they don't get a deal done and he sits, Cowboys are screwed. They're screwed. They're absolutely, and I believe even if they get a deal done, the Cowboys are going to have a long season. I can see Dallas going on the road and losing week 1 to Cleveland. Then they've got New Orleans and they've got Baltimore. I can see them losing that game. They get the Giants, that's a layup. At 2-2, you're not panicking as a Cowboys fan. But man, you get to 1-3 and maybe you slip up against Pittsburgh and Detroit and you have an early bye and you're 1-4. Ah. No good, man. No good. Dallas fans will be panicking. They will start screaming to bench the quarterback, get rid of the head coach. How come you didn't sign the wide receiver? You have to. You have to get a deal done, right? So if you're sitting there saying that this is an all-in off season, what did you do? What? I mean, think about what Jerry Jones did. Think about this. This is why the Dallas Cowboys are a laughable franchise. Jerry Jones said, I'm going all in. This is it. The window is starting to shut. Here we go. We got Dak. We got Mike McCarthy. We got CeeDee. We got a tight end, offensive line. Hell, we're bringing our veteran workhorse back. Ezekiel Elliott back into the fold. This man went all in with the hand he was already dealt. He didn't ask for another card. You understand what I'm saying? He just decided, this is where I'm going to lay my hat. And it's a major mistake. Other teams made moves in the offseason. All the Dallas Cowboys did is this. That's all the Dallas Cowboys ever do. The Dallas Cowboys win in June, July, and August. And then they'll win their 10, 11, 12 games. And I don't think they're going to this year, but they'll win their games, right? And what happens? They get bounced in the playoffs. And then it's wall-to-wall breaking news 24/7, Dallas Cowboys. What went wrong? Who's to blame? Fire the head coach. Get rid of the quarterback. Suck for Shador. That's my Giant slogan, right? Suck for Shador and go and get Deion Sanders and, Shador Sanders. And it's a package deal and bring him back to Dallas and come full circle. Keep whatever you're smoking, pass it over, will you? It's not happening. It's not happening. I mean, it's just, you can't run a team like this. He's running the team, first and foremost, making money, no doubt. But he wants a Super Bowl. You don't think Jerry Jones is aggravated that the Giants have won 2 Super Bowls? Right? Since 2007, or the Philadelphia Eagles finally won a Super Bowl. They got back to another one. Washington, eventually Washington's going to come up. It just happens in the NFL. The league is cynical. You can't be down for 20 years. You have your moments. And maybe Washington's do. Maybe not this year, but in the next couple of years, they're building. Well, can't say the same thing with the Dallas Cowboys. And when you have an owner that's more talking a big game, that's never a good thing. That doesn't translate into success. You went all in on players you already have. So you already know what they're bringing to the table. You didn't go outside the box. Should have fired the head coach. Should have got rid of that head coach. And they got rid of, think about this, they got rid of Quinn, and he actually had some decent numbers as a coordinator. That's why I like the hire from Washington. You look at statistically what that defense did 2021, 2022. And now he's with Washington, and he'll bring that edge to Washington. But yeah, listen, if I'm Jerry Jones, I just shut my mouth and get that deal done. I really do. I shut my mouth, I get that deal done, and I hope that Lamb is engaged and he's ready to go. You keep waiting, you keep playing this dangerous game, and it's going to bite you in the ass. It really is. All right, I got some baseball comments I want to get into on the other side. A little more NFL talk too. What do we got? We got 20 past the 4 o'clock hour on the East Coast right here on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass producing the show, keeping us on the air, and we are coming at you live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town, powered by Ion TV. Don't forget, download the app. You guys have been fantastic with the viewership and the eyeballs. Going to the website, sr1029thegame.com. But we definitely want you to download the app, share, tell your friends, like us, follow us on Facebook, as well as on X and IG. And it's pretty easy to do if you guys listen to the show. Again, on X, CSN Florida, at CSN Florida. Give us a follow, and you can follow along all the live content Monday to Friday, plus some of the shows that we re-air on the weekends. All right, more of your texts and your thoughts coming up on the other side. 727-858-6650. We'll drive you home on a Wednesday right here on a Wednesday edition of The Drive with Q.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Call or text the show
at 727-858-6650.
Now, back to Q.
All right, 427, a lot of more comments coming in. Let me roll them out on this Wednesday edition of The Drive. A lot of people chiming in regarding the Flores comments. Obviously, our audience down in Southwest Florida, obviously listening in the Miami area, Tampa area, Orlando area. Yeah, I mean, how fake was that presser? Was it big time? Was it so-so? You're not going. I think what happens is we want to hear certain things. And I know, without belaboring the point, because I know it is a hot topic around the league, the NFL, but I think if you take it a step further, you take it from this standpoint. What does it say about Tua? What does it say about Tua? Is he too soft? Or is he not open to criticism? Or is it maybe a situation where there's validity in what he was saying? Or the fact that it's rare that you have a player be as transparent as he was. That's another thing. And I don't hear too many people talking about that, right? We want these guys to not be robotic. We want these guys to be honest. That's what we look for. Everyone says, "Hey man, thanks for being honest," right? I love when people say, they start the conversation, they're like, "Well, to be honest, well, you should be honest in the first place." Right? Don't sugarcoat it. Don't BS me. But I think it's rare that you have a franchise quarterback who, oh, by the way, just signed a ridiculous contract, be pressed because you had an exceptional interviewer and Le Batard knows exactly what he's doing, to dive and just get under and peel the curtain back and get under, the underlying issue. Which, if you really think about it, is the fact that in the NFL, you're successful if you win. I mean, that's commonplace. You win games. Head coach, win games. But man, if you win games and players, quote, rally around you. I've asked some players, do you really subscribe to the theory that he's a player's coach? Players play hard for him. And I've gotten, probably if I ask this question to 20 to 25 players, 24 will tell me that's a crock. That's a crock. We're not playing any hard. We're not playing any less for this man. We're playing for ourselves, our family, our team, the organization, because it's a team concept at the end of the day, right? But I also believe if the coach's message is not resonating with the players, then I do believe players quit. Like, I don't believe they're going to play extra harder, but I do believe if a coach beats them down or they're going through struggles, bad play, injuries, it's a bad franchise, it's a bad season. The coach is a dead man walking. They roll over. They make, quote, business decisions. And again, is it possible that you look at the Dolphins and you look at the moments that they had with Brian Flores, and just maybe Brian Flores was not the right fit? He says, I want to grow. I want to grow from this situation, but I heard nowhere. Look, ready quote, look, I'm human. That hit me in a way that I wouldn't say was positive. I've got to use that and say, how can I grow from that? How can I be better? That's Fox 9 in Minnesota. Okay, fine. Did he say anywhere? He took the high road. But he also, you can tell he was annoyed, but he also had an opportunity. Like, you want to talk about teaching moment? That's what everyone says. This is a teaching moment in your life. Here's an opportunity for you to stand up, take the shrapnel, take the bullet, be a friggin' man, put your big boy pants on and say, yeah, I was wrong. I'm happy for the kid. He proved me wrong, and maybe I went about it the wrong way. Because here's the thing. Brian Flores wasn't shy about telling Tua. If you go back, Mike Lombardi, this was a couple years ago, on his podcast, said that Flores, or it could have been recently, I have to double check, wasn't shy about speaking frankly to Tua. Quote, I don't think Brian Flores was shy about telling Tua, hey, I should have picked Mac Jones. I don't think he was shy about telling him that. In fact, I know that he wasn't. If I knew you were going to be this bad, I would have picked Mac Jones, Flores told his young quarterback per Lombardi. Think about that. If I knew, it should be known, but if I knew you were going to be this bad, I would have picked Mac Jones, Flores told his young quarterback per Lombardi. Now, again, Lombardi also said that Doug Peterson was the worst choice in hire. Lombardi's obviously not in the NFL anymore. But point being is that Tua struggled his first 2 seasons. We can all agree. Like typical young quarterbacks, they struggle. Okay. He threw 27 touchdowns, 15 picks, 23 games. Since Mike McDaniel was hired by the Dolphins, after Flores was fired, would we agree that Tua has been one of the most electric, productive, consistent quarterbacks in the NFL? I would. He's thrown for close to 9,000 yards, 54 touchdowns, 22 picks in 30 games the past 2 seasons. This is a kid that threw close to 4,700 yards. And oh, by the way, the Dolphins made the playoffs in both seasons under McDaniel, which matched their total number of postseason appearances from the previous 20 friggin' seasons combined. So who's right, who's wrong? And ultimately, Tua got paid, man. Right? Your revenge is living a great life. 4 years, $212 million contract extension. So he's going to be with this squad for the next 4 or 5 years. Now you got Flores, who goes 24-25. And now he's a defensive coordinator with Minnesota. So point being is, you can take the high road. You can applaud the quarterback. You can turn around and say, listen, I made a mistake. 727-858-6650. And I understand. I mentioned it. They're a little nicked up here and there. But you have a full deck of playing cards. You got a full deck for this offense. They're going to put up some big numbers. 727-858-6650. Take out Hill's numbers. Revisit Tua's efficiency. That's Vince. It's a fair point, but I also think you're not appreciating Tua, right? Because you can't the thing is, we can't take those numbers out because it's a win-win, is it not? It's a win-win marriage. Now, if I take Tua out of the equation and I stick in Mike White, does the wide receiver still have these numbers? Does Tyreek Hill have 1,700 yards and 13 touchdowns? 171 targets, 120 catches? I don't know. Chicken or the egg, right? Horse or the carriage. I think Tua is a good quarterback. And for you, Florida fans down there that tune in, I think Miami's going to be a compelling team. Tampa Bay is going to be an interesting team. Jacksonville, everyone's waiting to see the other shoe to drop with Jacksonville down there because they paid their quarterback too. Baker got paid. for Tampa. Tua got paid with Miami. And Trevor Lawrence got paid with Jacksonville. Now, out of those three, you got to go 80 yards, down 6, 2 minutes to go in a timeout. Who you taking? Who you taking for that last drive? You taking Baker? Might have that back-breaking pick. Lawrence, who when you need a couple big efforts last year, Or are you going to take Tua? I mean, we want to attach the numbers, the stats to the contract. It's just what we do. It's just what we do. 727-858-6650. It's the NFL. You got to win in the NFL. You got to win. What Jerry Glanville say years ago? Not for long, right? Not for long. You got to win. That's it. Every team believes they've got a legitimate chance to win this season. But the reality is there's maybe 5 or 6 teams in the NFL that are really good football teams. Then everyone else is the middle of the pack. And then you have some really bad teams. And I think we've identified who we believe will be the bad teams. And they all have something in common. They just don't have the players. The coaching staffs are poorly constructed. The Giants. Right? Carolina. New England. Pittsburgh. They're not going to be good. They're just not. Pittsburgh's deciding, does Russell Wilson have anything left? Does he have any bullets left in the chamber? You're trying to squeeze out Russell Wilson from 5 years ago. He's a bridge quarterback. I mean, this might be the year that Tomlin doesn't have that winning record. You got Fields back there. The kid's going to play. Kid's younger. Think about the contract. 1-year deal. Same thing with Najee Harris. 1-year deal. Prove it. Get me out there. Let me get the reps. Let me get some burn. They're not going to be good teams, man. The Giants are not going to be a good football team. They're just not. I don't like their offensive line. Their quarterback gets banged up. I'm not the biggest fan of Brian Daboll. I think he's a good coach, but I also believe when you're on a staff with McDermott and you have Josh Allen, you excel a little more. Maybe we put you at a certain level and then all of a sudden, boom, now you've got to rebuild the equity and you got to start from scratch. And they over exceeded expectations, if that's even possible. Which, by the way, that's another phrase I have to throw out there. How do you exceed expectations? That's a pet peeve of mine. How do you exceed? If you're expected, those are your expectations. That's almost as bad as if I have to hear the term walk off in hockey and basketball and football, I'm going to freak the F out. I can't do that. I can't take it. That's a term that should be utilized and only used in baseball. That's it. I don't want to hear a walk-off punt return for a touchdown, a walk-off goal, a walk-off jumper. What the hell kind of society have we become? I don't. I really don't. All right, 140, 20 to play with. We'll take you up to 5 o'clock straight up. Last time out.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Don't forget to get social with us. Follow Q at Rich Q on Q. And now, back to Q.
I thought we were about to get an appearance from the PUP, but we settled her down. Just chucking a bone, that's all it is. What is it? Flipping pigeons or Dan Marino? 727-858-6650. Friday, I believe John Bueller from Fanside is going to join us, and got a couple other guests working on a couple former players. Hank Poteet played a lot of years with New England and the Jets. Mike Daniels as well, great defensive tackle from Green Bay, played with Aaron Rodgers. We got a couple other players we're trying to work into the equation as well. By the way, the numbers are just phenomenal. The viewing audience today, you guys are just fantastic, man. Totally appreciate you guys keeping us locked in. Angel was telling me, I don't know if I have to refresh to pop up the Incredible Shrinking Hermano. I might have to. He's going to have to give me a thumbs up, and then what I do is my 10-second delay. Oh my goodness. Look at this.
That's
Circle gets a square. What's going on?
That's right. Don't have to refresh. I've tweaked a couple things, and I'm still tweaking stuff to make sure that you don't have to do, hopefully, any more refreshes.
No, I appreciate it. No, you were saying, and it's very complimentary, that guys were tuning in your show, guys were tuning into the morning show. They made the switch for 3 o'clock to the drive, which I totally appreciate. I'm waiting to see if we're about to get a cameo appearance from just wait for it. It's going to happen. But anyway, so that's very complimentary, and I absolutely appreciate that. That's nice to hear.
Yep. No, some of the guys here locally in Florida and some other folks have tuned in to the drive here at 3 to 5. So we figured, since you guys can't get enough from 3 to 5, soon we're going to go from 3:30 to 7:30, and then we're going to slide 4 to 8, maybe possibly, 4 to like midnight. We're just going to keep kind of going around and seeing how good it, of course, I'm kidding, folks. It's 3 to 5 with the drive, but no, it's been a lot of good folks have been tuning in, saying that they even have the workforce at their job site to listen in, which is always a beautiful thing, because they'll put it on a Bluetooth speaker, have everybody listen in. And that's always great, because again, we try to do our best here. We try to have as much fun as possible. Added on now a brand new sports photographer to the mix as well. So lots and lots and lots going on. But it's been well received. I think for some folks, as I keep saying, I see you, copy paste all you want. But up until that 3 to 5 p.m. hour, it's good switch and a lot of good eyeballs coming our way.
No, it's fantastic. We appreciate it. And I know you got out for a little soccer the other day. You're doing stuff with the Tampa squad, right, down there. Also, some of the local colleges. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Tonight, the women, they're on at 7 p.m. Unfortunately, I cannot be there tonight because, of course, at 8 o'clock, it's Talking Hoops here on the network. But tomorrow night is the USF men's soccer opener. Tomorrow evening, that will be at 6:30. And then Saturday, back down here in Tampa for the Tampa Bay Sun Football Club as they drew a draw. Huge sellout crowd, 5,000 on board on Sunday. It was a great time, and Kiki made the appearance, I see.
Yeah, we're about to open up the door. We'll take our last time out. We're about to open up the door. She's got that look on her. She's a smart dog. She knows when it's 5 o'clock. It's playtime, feeding time. Get me out there. Get me running among the other animals, if you will. The funny thing is they so the city right outside AC where I am, the shore town, they got rid of all the foxes. They came in and they just wiped away all the foxes. So now, what's that?
Did they leave the cougars?
No MILFs, just foxes. No cougars. So now we get a ton of rabbits because there's no foxes or cougars or MILFs.
Just throw it out there.
4:45, 15 to play with. All right, last time out. We'll come back on the other side.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all.
Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have any body to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Call or text the show at 727-858-6650. Now, back to Q.
All right, about 10 to play with on this Wednesday edition of The Drive right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, the game, Southwest Florida's newest game in town. We love that we are getting a ton of eyeballs from Southwest Florida, as we should. Rich Quinones here, Angel Martinez behind the glass. Did you see that Jennifer Lopez and...
Yippers, Benifer?
Yeah, well... I mean, is it really Benifer anymore? It's kind of like, Dunifer. So this is the...
By the way, did you see him just slamming the door when, I don't know if it was TMZ or somebody was in the area?
Yeah.
And she was walking back to the car with coffee in hand, which looked kind of phony because it seemed like it was way too light
right.
for her to walk back. But basically shut the door. Like when you're done with relationships, that last door time, like, poof, I can't wait to be done with this.
So I am curious, right? So, she filed for divorce on the wedding anniversary to take a stand, right? Because love don't cost a thing. I don't think that a prenup. How do you... She got married to the dancer. She got married to Puffy. P. Diddy.
Yeah.
She got married. A-Rod. Didn't it get married?
Yep.
And then and Affleck twice? Not Affleck, Duck. Affleck twice?
No, once. Because remember, he wanted to marry her, and then she ditched him, I believe, for the dancer. And then he hung around because then he got...
Well, point being, I guess my point is...
Yes.
I mean, look. Again, the phrase that I can't stand, let's be honest here. I'm not kicking Jennifer Lopez out of bed for eating crackers.
All right.
Well, I'm just saying, like...
Right.
I'm sure she's a tad high maintenance, but I guess my point is, it's never working out for Jenny from the block. What's the problem here? She's not picking the right cat.
I think she gets bored. Is what it seems like. Because what P. Diddy was a whole different situation as things are kind of coming out. But she gets bored. I don't know. First of all, if I'm Ben Affleck, I wouldn't have waited around. Number one. Because if you dump me the first time around, and then you had a kid got married with Jennifer Gardner or whatever, and some people put comments out there, she's aging like a fine wine. That's to each her own type comments. But for me, I think maybe she just got tired of it. I don't know what she expects from people. It just seems like she's like the kid when you give them a brand new toy and it's shiny, it's nice, you play around with it, and poop, 5 minutes later, it's back in the closet.
Well, when you have her network. By the way, so her mom is the nicest woman in the world, because I used to do when we opened Hard Rock and I was with the marketing and PD department, and I also used to handle a lot of the events like entertainment, like high-end tickets for your really big time customers. You're talking like 150, 250, 300,000. They called them the butler guest because they basically had a butler. So you had a certain line of credit, you had to play to a certain level. And I met her mom several times, and she was just the nicest. She would constantly always want to touch the curls and the waves, but she was just absolute sweetheart, absolute sweetheart. But yeah, man, I mean, 4 marriages. Whew. Yeah, hold on. 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, we forgot about Mark Anthony.
Yeah, that was a big one.
So I messed up. It was the
That was
dancer,
nice.
Chris Judge, Mark Anthony. I forgot about my guy, Mark Anthony. And Ben Affleck. Yeah, no puff. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Whew, man. Yeah, that's I guess, love does cost a thing.
Yeah, well, she's also winning Super Bowls too with all the rings that she's collecting. That's 5 now.
That's right. Do we make that cheesy bar joke? Oh, Jennifer Lopez has more rings than the Dallas Cowboys.
I'll have to remember that for tomorrow's show.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let me get caught up to speed right now. White Sox and the Giants, top of the 8th, 2-2. Pittsburgh and the Rangers are still scoreless. You saw the Mets get a dramatic walk-off win. How about the Metsies right now? 4-3 over Baltimore. Boston gets the win over. I mentioned how hot the Astros were. I think Verlander took the loss, which he did. So they lost 4-1. We were 3-0 on the picks. Monday, we're going to come back. We're giving you the 3-0 picks right now. Big matchup tonight. Seattle and the Dodgers. Right now, this is plus 150 on the money line for Seattle. The Dodgers are a very good home team. I'm actually going to not only play the Dodgers on the money line, minus 180. I know. Dropping to 180 to win back 100. I like the pitching matchup. Flaherty over Gilbert. Give me the Dodgers at home. That's game number 1. The Cardinals, who have quietly kind of just held their own right now against Milwaukee, 35-28 on the road. Myers on the hill. He's trimmed down that ERA under 3 for Milwaukee. Right now, it's sitting at even. I'll take Milwaukee on the money line in this one. That's game number 2. And then every time, I feel like Pacino, right? Every time I bet on Nola, right? And I think, boom, and then they pull me back in. He screws me. So I can't do it. So I'm going with Atlanta tonight. Fried, even though he's at a 500 clip, I like the Braves. Let me see if we can squeeze in one more comment or two. 727-858-6650. A couple of guys want to know my Cy Young picks or the current odds, which I will gladly give you right now. Sale jumped Wheeler, and the kid from Pittsburgh is hanging around. That kid's just been remarkable. I think the Cy Young Award in the NL is a tight one. So you got Wheeler, didn't help his cause last night. Sale kind of jockeying themselves. I don't think they're going to give it to that rookie out of Pittsburgh. I would have loved to saw this kid pitch a couple complete games. Right now, Sale minus 360, Wheeler at plus 300. So that's in the NL. Wheeler, you figure maybe 1 or 2, at least 2 or 3, maybe starts. Again, the whip is kind of keeping him in there. His ERA is right around 2.70. So he's right there. As far as the AL Cy Young, updated odds as we speak. Updated for the AL. Let me see if I can pull these guys up for you. We'll rip these out before we get out of here. So this is, I hate even if it's a day because you know how these change. Oh, man. Wow. I mean, you got the one kid from Detroit. Look at these, man. Minus 1,100. Jeez. I mean, the kid's pitched. I mean, he's really pitched well tonight. Detroit, coincidentally, hasn't named the starter for tonight. That kid, I think he's 14-4. And I don't want to butcher his name. Tariq Skubal. If you don't watch baseball, if you haven't followed this kid, he's having a ridiculous season. I mean, he's never won more than 8 games, and that was his second year in the majors. He's 14-4. He's won 7 in back-to-back seasons, so he's pretty much already surpassed his career high. His ERA is right around 2.49. What sucks is that Detroit, they're not a great team. They're just not. they're not a really good team. I mean, they're 12.5 back. They're 4 or 5 games under 500. I guess if I had to play, I would give you that. All right. I know we got to start wrapping up preseason NFL. We will recap, obviously, week 3. You got 2 games on Thursday. Kansas City, Chicago, Indianapolis, Cincinnati. And then Friday, I'll give you some plays for Friday show 3 to 5. You got 3 on the docket on Friday, and then you got a full slate on Saturday, including Dallas and the Chargers, the Eagles and the Vikings, and the Giants and the Jets to Snoopy Bowl. And then you got 2 or 3, I believe, on Sunday. I think we have 3 games on Sunday. Titans, Saints, Cardinals, Denver, and Washington should be playing. And I believe they're playing New England because that line's a little goofy right now. I think New England's 3-4 point favorite. So I'll give you some plays on Friday. We'll have a little fun with that. I also want to get into some futures in the NFL, some player props. We're going to try to work in a fantasy football segment this season. So we'll try to do that on a Wednesday or a Football Friday edition of The Drive with Q. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in as always. Don't forget to start the week off right. Pete Shepard Show, Monday to Friday, 7 to 10. Martinez and Company with mi hermano Angel Martinez, 10 to 12. Myself, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays with The Drive from 3 to 5 right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. Appreciate Steve Gardner checking in as well. Great baseball writer. Give him a follow. Follow all of our hosts as well on social media. And what's really unique is if you go to the website, sr1029thegame.com, and then you click on the SR 1029 FM The Game tab. So you'll see we've got the shows formatted. Pete Show, my show, Lloyd Vance's show, Talking Hoops, Marshall Time, Let's Chat with Kat and Pat. And also in that, you have their social media links as well. And you guys can just click right there and give them a follow. And then you also have us on the dynamic lead, which is pretty cool. I mean, you got to love that. Look, right now you can hear me. Look at that. Repeat. There you go. Boom. We get me in double time. And that's what it's all about. All right. Got to start wrapping up. Excellent stuff with the chats. Excellent stuff with the comments. Facebook, I'll respond to you guys. X as well. We will be back in the saddle for a Football Friday preseason edition of The Drive with Q right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. The show will be up and loaded on demand. I'll repost it on my YouTube channel, Broad Street South, as well for Angel's channel. And we always appreciate you guys tuning in. If this is your first time, thank you so much. Share, comment, like. You guys can come at me, not a problem. You can give me some criticisms. You can give me some critiques. You can give me some accolades, compliments. As long as you guys are tuning in and checking us out, we greatly appreciate it. Trying to make a little dent in Florida and up and down the East Coast as we are part of the Coastal Sports Network. And, of course, right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, as we are approaching 5 o'clock. For Adrian Martinez, I'm Rich Quinones. Have a wonderful Sports Wednesday. We will talk to you Friday, as always. Hasta luego, buen día.